The rain came softly over the Scottish Highlands, draping the valleys in silver veils. The old stone inn on the edge of Glencoe flickered with amber light, a single refuge against the cold wind. Sam stood by the window of his rented cabin, watching the mist curl around the peaks. He had come here to disappear, or at least, to forget. But forgetting was a cruel illusion. Even out here, miles away from everything, her name still haunted him. Dakota, he ran a hand through his hair and exhaled sharply. The fireplace behind him crackled, its warmth meaningless against the storm inside him. He had sworn to himself that he wouldn't think of her again, not after what he saw in London 2 weeks ago. But how could he not? The image replayed like a wound that refused to close. Dakota laughing in the soft light of a cafe, and across from her, Chris Martin. Sam's jaw tightened at the memory. He knew Chris, not well, but enough. The musician with the quiet eyes and an aura of melancholy charm. A man who could turn an apology into a song. But to Sam, in that moment, Chris was not an artist, he was a rival. Sam had walked away before either of them saw him, his hands trembling in his coat pockets, pretending the ache in his chest was just the cold. Now, 2 weeks later, that ache had grown into fury, not loud, but deep and constant. Like thunder rolling under a calm sky. He poured himself a drink, whiskey, neat, and stared at the glass. The amber liquid caught the light, glowing like something alive. He remembered Dakota's voice, soft and low, when she'd told him she needed space. He nodded, like a fool, pretending to understand, pretending that space didn't mean someone else. Outside, the rain turned to sleet. He was about to sit when headlights appeared in the distance. A car climbing the narrow road toward his cabin. His brow furrowed. No one came out here without a reason. The car stopped. A door opened, and through the blur of mist and light, a familiar figure stepped out, trench coat, dark hair pulled back, moving with that same quiet confidence he'd memorized. His heart stilled. Dakota, he whispered. She stood in the doorway seconds later, her breath visible in the cold air. "Hi, Sam." The silence between them stretched like a wire ready to snap. He couldn't decide whether to pull her in or shut the door. "What are you doing here?" he asked finally, his voice rougher than he intended. "I needed to see you," she said. "You wouldn't answer my calls." "You didn't leave much to say." He leaned against the frame, the whiskey still in his hand. "I figured you were busy. With him." Her eyes flashed. "It's not what you think. It's exactly what I think," Sam snapped, the anger he'd buried flaring to life. "You disappear, you tell me you need space, and then I see you with Chris Bloody Martin in some London cafe like." "Stop," she said, her voice trembling. "Please, it wasn't what it looked like." He laughed, not cruelly, but hollowly. "Then tell me what it was." For a long moment, she said nothing. Her hands trembled as she unbuttoned her coat. Beneath it, she looked pale, fragile in a way he didn't remember. "He was helping me," she said quietly. "There's something I haven't told you." Sam froze. He wanted to stay angry, but something in her tone, that flicker of fear, cut through him. "Helping you with what?" he asked, softening despite himself. Dakota looked past him, toward the window, as if expecting someone, or something, outside. "It's not just about us, Sam. It's bigger than that." Her voice cracked. "I didn't want you to get involved." A gust of wind slammed against the cabin, rattling the window panes. Somewhere in the distance, thunder rolled again. Sam stepped closer. "Involved in what, Dakota?" She met his eyes then, and for the first time, he saw something that chilled him more than anger ever could. Fear. Before she could answer, a shadow moved past the window, fast, deliberate. Sam turned, heart pounding. The lights flickered once, then went out. The sudden darkness swallowed the room. For a second, all Sam could hear was the frantic beat of his own heart and the storm clawing at the windows. "Stay here," he whispered, but Dakota caught his arm. "No, don't go outside." Her voice was sharp, trembling with something beyond fear. Sam could barely see her face in the dim light from the dying fire. "What's going on, Dakota?" he demanded, lowering his voice. "Who's out there?" She hesitated. Then, "Someone followed me." The words cut through him. "What? I didn't think he'd come this far," she whispered, glancing toward the window again. "I thought I lost him in Glasgow." Sam reached for the drawer beside the table and pulled out the flashlight he kept there. The beam sliced through the darkness, landing on Dakota's pale face. "Who, Dakota? Who's following you?" She pressed her lips together, as if deciding whether to tell him the truth. Then she said it, quietly, like a confession. "Chris." Sam froze. "Chris Martin?" She nodded, tears glinting in her eyes. "He won't stop calling, following. He says he just wants to talk, but there's something off. He knows things about me he shouldn't know, things I never told anyone." Sam's first instinct was disbelief. Chris Martin, the gentle, introspective musician who wrote songs about hope, didn't fit the image of a stalker. But the terror in Dakota's voice wasn't something she could fake. "Are you saying he's dangerous?" "I don't know," she said, shaking her head. "But he's different now. Obsessive. He said if I didn't come back to him, he'd." A sharp knock at the door cut her off. Both froze. 3 knocks. "Slow, measured, Dakota," a voice called from outside. Calm, melodic, almost too calm. "Open the door. We need to talk." Sam's grip on the flashlight tightened until his knuckles went white. He recognized that voice instantly. Chris Martin. Dakota stepped back, eyes wide. "Sam, don't," but Sam was already moving. The anger that had been simmering inside him for weeks flared into something raw and primal. He yanked open the door. Rain lashed in, and there he was, standing under the eaves, drenched, his coat dark with water. Chris looked nothing like the serene musician the world adored. His eyes were hollow, sleepless, burning with something manic. "Sam," he said, almost gently. "I was hoping I'd find you here." Sam stood in the doorway, blocking his way. "You need to leave." Chris tilted his head. "That's not up to you. Dakota doesn't want to see you." Chris's smile faltered. "She told you that?" "She doesn't have to." Behind Sam, Dakota whispered, "Chris, please, just go. This isn't you." For a moment, the man seemed to soften. The rain streaked down his face, mingling with something that looked like sorrow. "You think I don't know that? You think I wanted any of this?" Sam's patience snapped. "You're scaring her." Chris's eyes flicked to him, sharp as glass. "And what are you doing, Sam? Hiding her in a cabin in the middle of nowhere? Playing the hero?" He stepped closer. Sam didn't move. The tension between them was a wire pulled taut, humming with old rivalry and unspoken jealousy. "You don't know what she's done," Chris whispered. "You think she's yours to save? She's not who you think she is." Dakota's voice broke through them. "Enough." She stepped between the two men, trembling. "Both of you, stop it. This isn't about pride or jealousy. It's about what's coming." "What's coming?" Sam asked, frowning. She looked at him, then at Chris, torn between two ghosts of her past. "You don't understand. There's something bigger. It started months ago, before either of you knew. Someone's been watching all of us. Not just you, Chris. Me too." Chris's expression shifted, confusion, then fear. "You mean the messages?" Sam blinked. "What messages?" Dakota took a breath, her hands shaking. "The letters. The ones I kept getting. No name, no return address. Just phrases. Things that didn't make sense. But the last one." She reached into her coat pocket and pulled out a crumpled piece of paper, damp from the rain. Sam took it and unfolded it carefully. There were only 6 words, written in neat black ink. The hills remember everything you hide. A chill crept up Sam's spine. Outside, the wind howled again, but beneath it, faint, almost inaudible, came another sound. Footsteps, not Chris's, not theirs. Someone else was moving around the cabin. Chris turned sharply toward the window. "You weren't followed," he hissed. Dakota's face went pale. "I was sure I wasn't." Sam stepped to the door, scanning the darkness with the flashlight. The beam caught nothing but trees swaying violently in the wind. Then, just for an instant, the light swept across something. A figure standing at the tree line, motionless. Watching, before Sam could move, it was gone. He turned back to Dakota and Chris. "Pack your things," he said, voice low but firm. "We're leaving. Now." Dakota hesitated. "Where will we go?" Sam looked out into the storm again, his anger buried now beneath instinct. "Somewhere they can't find us." Behind him, the fire flared suddenly, as if someone had thrown more wood on it, but none of them had moved. And on the hearth, as the light grew, Sam saw something lying there that hadn't been there before. Another note. Written in the same black ink. "You can't outrun what you owe." They left the cabin before dawn. The storm had passed, leaving the hills washed in silver mist and the faint scent of smoke. Sam walked ahead, his flashlight beam cutting through the fog, while Dakota and Chris followed in uneasy silence. None of them spoke about the note. The words still echoed too loudly in their minds. "You can't outrun what you owe. Where are we going?" Chris asked finally, voice hoarse. "There's a safe house," Sam said without turning. "Old friend of mine owns a place near Fort William. Off the main road. We'll figure things out there." Chris gave a dry laugh. "You sound like you've done this before." Sam didn't answer. The truth was, he had. The mountains had always been his refuge, the only place that didn't ask questions. Behind him, Dakota stumbled slightly on the rocky path. Sam turned back, instinctively reaching to steady her. She caught his hand, cold fingers, trembling, and for a moment, their eyes met. It was like the world stopped moving. She looked exhausted, but the vulnerability in her gaze struck something inside him. Beneath the fear, there was still that same spark, the one that had drawn him to her from the start. "Are you all right?" he asked quietly. She nodded, but didn't let go of his hand right away. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "For everything." Sam opened his mouth to respond, but Chris's voice cut in sharply. "We should keep moving." The spell broke. Dakota stepped back, and Sam turned away, jaw tightening. They continued down the narrow trail. The fog thickened, wrapping them in a ghostly shroud. Every rustle in the trees made Dakota flinch. Every shadow made Sam's pulse quicken. At last, they reached an old service road, half swallowed by grass and rainwater. Sam led them to a parked Land Rover hidden behind an outcropping of rock. "You always keep a car stashed in the middle of nowhere?" Chris muttered. "Old habits," Sam replied curtly. "Get in." They drove in tense silence for over an hour. The Highlands rolled past, endless, ancient, indifferent to their turmoil. The only sound was the steady hum of the engine and the occasional whisper of wind against the windows. At last, Chris spoke again, unable to hold it in. "Dakota, those letters. You said someone's been watching you. How long?" She hesitated. "Since March." "That's months," Sam said, glancing at her. "And you didn't tell anyone?" "I thought it was just someone being weird. A fan. They always start that way, polite, poetic, harmless. Then the tone changed." "Changed how?" Dakota's voice dropped. They started mentioning things no one could know. Personal things. Things from my past. Chris turned to her, pale. You mean, about your father? Sam shot him a look. What about her father? Dakota's hands clenched in her lap. He's not who people think he is, she said quietly. He disappeared when I was 14. The police said it was suicide. But the letters, they said he didn't die. That he ran. The car went silent. Sam gripped the wheel tighter. And whoever's sending these notes, they think you know where he went. I don't know, she said. But the last one, before the one in the cabin, it said, the debt was never paid. Chris leaned forward, voice low. That's why I was meeting you in London, Dakota. You said you needed help finding someone. I thought it was a producer, not, he stopped. Not this. Sam's jaw clenched. And you didn't think to tell me any of it. I didn't want you dragged into it, she said, almost pleading. You'd already been through so much. He looked at her, eyes dark. You don't get to decide what I can handle. The silence that followed was heavy, thick with all the things they'd never said. Suddenly, from behind them, a pair of headlights appeared, distant but gaining fast. Sam glanced in the rearview mirror. You expecting company? Chris turned around, frowning. No. The lights grew brighter. Sam's instincts kicked in. He swerved onto a side road, the tires splashing mud. Hold on. The Land Rover bounced violently as they cut across a narrow bridge and onto a dirt path winding between cliffs. The pursuing car followed, its engine a low growl in the rain-soaked morning. Who the hell is that? Chris shouted. Not waiting to find out, Sam said, pressing harder on the accelerator. The road curved sharply ahead. Sam took it fast, too fast. The tires slipped, gravel flying. The car skidded sideways before regaining traction. Dakota let out a small gasp, clutching the seat. Then, a gunshot. The back window shattered, glass spraying through the cabin, down. Sam barked, ducking instinctively. Chris swore. They're shooting at us? Sam gritted his teeth and floored the accelerator. Guess that answers who they are. They tore through the forest until the road ended abruptly at a collapsed bridge. Sam slammed the brakes, the car jerking to a stop just feet from the drop. Out, he shouted. They scrambled from the vehicle, running toward the tree line as the other car screeched to a halt behind them. Shadows poured out, two men in black coats, faces obscured. Dakota stumbled again. Sam grabbed her arm, pulling her behind a cluster of rocks. Chris ducked beside them, breathing hard. Who are they? Sam hissed. Dakota shook her head, tears streaking her face. I don't know, but they have the same symbol. She pointed to one of the men's sleeves, where a faint insignia was stitched in red thread. A circle split by a vertical line. Chris whispered, That's the mark from the letters. Sam's pulse hammered. He reached into his jacket, pulling out a small hunting knife, all he had. We need to move, now. They crawled through the brush, every step a gamble between survival and discovery. Behind them, the men's voices echoed faintly in the mist, calm, methodical, too sure of themselves. After what felt like hours, they reached the mouth of an old railway tunnel. Sam led them inside, flashlight flickering over moss-covered walls. Dakota shivered. Where does it lead? Nowhere, Sam said. It was abandoned decades ago. Chris stared at the darkness ahead. So we're trapped, or safe, Sam countered. Depends on how you look at it. Dakota sank against the wall, her voice barely audible. Who are they, Sam? What do they want? He looked at her, at the fear in her eyes, the exhaustion, the weight of too many secrets. I don't know, he said finally. But whoever they are, they're not just after your father. Dakota frowned. Then what? Sam turned toward the tunnel's shadowed depths. They're after you.